All right, welcome to the book discussion, Doing Imago Relationship Therapy in the Space Between. We're really officially on chapter 8, but I do want to just invite people to go back to 6 or 7 because it's so rich.
Mhm.
But we're on chapter 8, which is really working with the developmental challenges and how they show up in different kinds of couples. So it's almost like archetypes of different kinds of couples that you're going to be working with. And that's how I'm thinking about it is like these are archetypes. They're not universal truths. They're just patterns that we may see based on where the unmet needs landed in their development as a child, and then how that's going to impact them as a couple in adulthood in our offices. So, thinking about what kind of things will we hear from couples with different levels of developmental needs. And it's like, a lot of systems, if you will. This like Harville and Helen have created this system, this chart of like almost like it's um like a formula. And I just want us to hold that lightly as just an idea to think about versus like a truth for every couple. But I think there's a lot of interesting things around like what kind of interventions we might use based on the developmental needs that we think we're seeing in the couple. And like I said, I just want to invite people to share whatever you want to share from previous chapters or whatever interested you. I can't believe we're already on chapter 8. Like this is a really dense book and we're moving through it. So hi, Latressa. Good to see you. Welcome.
Hi,
I
Bon.
miss you guys.
I know. I know. It's been kind of a wild summer. Yeah. So, yeah. Anything stand out that you want to start with?
I don't mind starting. To me, this chapter reminds me of the importance of going back to the basics, is what I got. Like, I can see where there's a lot of a need to do psycho ed when they're in their toxic moments and things like that, just to stop and remind them how. And I'll just stop there. Like I see where you can use a lot of this to go back to basics to
Hmm.
get them unstuck is what I got from this chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked what you're saying. Yeah, just remembering to go back to basics. And yeah, I think sometimes we can forget how powerful these little tools are to
Hmm.
get them unstuck and back on track. Just kind of a lot of the advice that was given was about encouragement and normalizing. And so you're just thinking about, yeah, we could do pieces of psycho ed to help them realize that it's okay. Wherever if they're stuck, it's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Is there more? This kind of on piggybacking on what you're saying on page 175 in the middle of the paragraph that starts developmental stage specific challenges and defenses. In the middle of the paragraph, it says, of these, the earlier the challenge, the stronger the defense, and the more compelling the need. If the challenge was early, say in the first months or first year of life, the challenge will be greater, and all the stages coming after that will be compromised by what came before. So I think that is a big summary in my mind of like, okay, the more I'm working with a couple, the more the intense the energy, the more difficult my countertransference, my feelings are, probably the earlier the pre-verbal this wound is. And so thinking about how do I work with my own energy, nervous system when you've got two crying babies, like how are you gonna manage your nervous system and what do they need? And just knowing that if it's not intense, it's because of the stage that they're on in terms of what they're working on. But if it's really intense, it's probably an earlier stage that they have an unmet
Yes.
need.
And even on the same page, the paragraph before, and I put next to it a challenge. The therapist needs to listen carefully to the language of the couple's frustration and desires to assess the developmental stage. Like we have to be mindful opposed to going towards should this couple do Imago or what's wrong with the couple is I think it's a personal challenge for us to listen to the language of their frustration and not get caught up in what goes on at home.
Yeah, let me make sure I'm hearing you. Like listening carefully to try to understand what developmental stage they might be at and not get caught up at what's going on at home. And I heard that as like the content. Like it's not necessarily about a remote control or money or whatever. It's about this need to feel heard, seen, worthy, whatever that unmet need is. That if we listen carefully, we'll hear it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I think
And
that's our challenge because I always tell the couples it's never about the toilet seat. So put the seat down. But this one day I exploded. So it wasn't just this day, it's some unfulfilled need or frustration that's coming up. And it just looks like that in that moment.
yes, exactly. So that's our challenge, right? To not get triggered or frustrated, but to just listen and try to understand how they make sense based on where their unmet needs are. Yeah. Yeah, I actually the whole paragraph after that I really like too, um, because it's like a list of the kinds of things we're listening for, right? The experience of connecting, success in exploration of the physical environment, achieving a clear identity, sense of self, and developing competence in the use of four functions: thinking, feeling, acting, and sensing. So it's almost like that's our treatment plan. And if they're doing it, great. But if that's one of those areas, then that's where some of the work is. And it made me think like the way they're laying this out, it's kind of linear. It's like, first you have this stage, like Erickson's stages, right? And it's first you have this stage, then this, then this. And they're saying, they're all related. But it made me think like where like sometimes a couple come in and I feel like their argument is related to like competency and that's where they're arguing. But I wonder like, but what if underneath that is a connecting wound that I'm dealing with this first because that's what's showing up in the space, which trusting the space, but I'm also curious, like, would it be better to try to work earlier around that? And I mean, I think it sort of naturally comes up because then as we work, it starts to come out what it means, like what the meaning they're making of whatever the fight is. And like it means you don't really love me is really more of a connecting stage wound than it means I'm stupid or, that sort of competency stage. So anyway, I was just thinking a lot about like I kind of go with the flow. I kind of go with wherever the couple is and wait to see if something comes up. But also sometimes I think what we're curious about can help the space get there. So it's like if I'm curious if underneath this competency argument, there is a connecting wound, does that help the couple sort of help the space like bring it out? It's very quantum or woo woo, but I do think sometimes what I'm open to or curious about helps the space.
Of course it does. I mean, how could it not when you're talking about
Yeah,
the quantum
yeah,
space?
yeah,
It's all pulsating and it comes from us too.
yeah. I think so.
Sorry, I got distracted but can I just ask a clarifying question? Are you saying that the developmental need is clear to you, but you probe for a deeper need, or it's unclear to you and you probe for a deeper need,
or both.
or both? Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, Michael, let me just get your question. Like, do we probe for a deeper need? Either we experience one and we probe, or did I get the question? I'm not sure I
But
got the
I
question.
just wasn't clear if the developmental need was presenting itself and you were getting it
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah, no, usually it's like, oh, this argument feels like it's about who's smarter or something to do with competency. And I, I think it's just something to think about. Like, is this looks like competency, but maybe underneath that, there's actually a connecting wound that's impacting what we think they're arguing about. And I would just say for me, I don't probe.
Uh,
I just tend to follow where they are, but it makes me just think about, am I thinking about it enough? Am I wondering about all the developmental stages versus
uh,
just working with what's in front of me? Um, yeah, just kind of a
but
question that I'm now, I think, sitting with more. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
maybe
think questions like this are help guide me. Like
can
they're
I
like a, yeah, go ahead.
can I ask slightly different question? Does the So we're looking at at least the model that's being presented is that there is a dominant area or developmental stage where the wounding where we're probably wounded in all developmental stages, but there's a dominant or a one that's more prominent that shows up.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good question. Like for me, I have them all. My husband and I were over at breakfast. I was like, "Oh, honey, we hit every one of these. Aren't we lucky?" Because yeah, but what I liked at the end, the very end of the chapter, there, meaning the couples, frustrations and complaints will change because they're encountering the unfinished agenda of the next stage. So as Stephen and I work on the connecting wound, um, it starts to get some traction. Then we start to, okay, now we have to work on the exploring wound and then get some traction. Now we have to work on the identity. And for us, it's not linear. It's like we are year to year, we're working on different stuff. And they talked about there's like four developmental stages that are primary as to why you would come into therapy. And if you got enough of your needs met up until age 6, you probably aren't going to end up in therapy because you're going to have enough that, you could do a workshop and obviously deepen and build your relationship, but you're not necessarily going to be in all these crises. Um, but yeah, I almost kind of want a model where it's like, well, this is a couple with one area of developmental wounding, and like this is a couple with all four, because that's where we land. Is like we have all four, and that is just, you know, the gift of our relationship of we're just got a lot of pockets of immaturity that we hit. I don't know if that answers your question, Michael, but that was interesting to me to think about how it's I like Sophie Slade. She talks about how it's almost like a blanket and you have patches that are threadbare, but the blanket's held together well enough that it works. But just that you have these little patches versus like a linear thing. Because I just it doesn't feel linear to me. But I'm curious what all you all think.
yeah,
So
and
yes, and does the primary developmental need show up, or do you get to see it often, or
Yeah, you get to see it often and over again.
So it's in the core theme, it's in the core scene that repeats.
Yes,
So
yes,
if I
the
could tell you our
core
core
scene.
scene, you could tell me the developmental stage,
Well,
probably.
I could give some guesses, but like I said, I think it's layered. I think there's going to be aspects. And one thing that when I work with couples that I think about is, do they have kids or are they around kids? And what are the ages of the kids? Because that
Yeah.
activates the memory network in the adults for those stages and unmet needs. So that's one of the things that I think complicates it is over time, as we had a new baby, as our baby was 4, 10, 12, 15, launching, now we're empty nesters. Like we had to rework developmental stages in all those areas.
Mhm.
And so when a couple hits a crisis point, that's one of the things I'm curious about is how old
Mm.
are the kids and what happened to you at that age? And oftentimes I find, oh yeah, there was a divorce, there was an affair, there was something that's now recreating another pattern.
Mm.
What do you think, Bonnie? What are your thoughts?
What do I think? What are my thoughts?
Mhm.
Well, I've just come from a session where I was uh, like shocked by one of the first things you said. And that is just go with the flow and take these as archetypes and things like that. Working with a couple who are getting divorced. They have two kids, 3 and 4, and the one person really buys into, gets, makes sense of the Imago theory. The other person thinks it's bullshit. And working with those real extreme viewpoints has been challenging for me.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed in this session today, I was baiting hooks and I was, you know, yeah, it just not going with the flow. I had an agenda, and that might be why I'm feeling kind of quiet and whatever right now because I'm still thinking about it. And
Yeah.
then, of course, Michelle has the nerve to say what she said.
Well, but I love what you're saying, Bonnie, because we all get hooked. I get hooked all the time and have agendas, and it's easier to teach not to have an agenda than it is to do because
Right, right,
we get caught up in the field and the
yeah,
the energy and our own desire to help this couple, and
yeah.
uh so I like that you shared that. I really relate to that. Yeah. How about you, Linda? Anything on your mind about what we're talking about? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm taking it all in. I can relate to Bonnie. I've had it reminded me of a couple that I had like that. And and also these earlier stages are really trying when you have couples, and I get a lot of these couples, the wounding is in those first 4 stages,
Yeah.
and it's just it's a lot. You really look forward to people who are kind of further along because those are kind of
Mhm.
easier, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, going with the flow and just seeing where it goes. Yeah, because Bonnie, I'm known for having an agenda. I'll go in and I have an agenda, but I've learned how to have an agenda but hold it loosely at the same time.
That's right. And Linda's taught me how to actually have an agenda. When we trained together, Linda's like, "Oh my God, Michelle, you just took a left turn. This was not the plan."
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And Michelle has helped me learn how to hold it loosely. Just have it, but be willing to go where it goes. So
Yes. I miss training with you. We have to train something together because we're a
we
good
do,
team.
we do.
I wanted to add this sentence into the conversation. So after this like list of sort of the treatment plan, like what you'd be working on, um, because our neural system is limited to polar defenses, maximizing and minimizing, these defenses will be used to manage anxiety at all stages. But their strength will be stage specific, which earns them a stage specific name. And
What page are you on?
oh,
Yeah, where are
sorry,
you?
page 175. I am finishing that first
Okay, okay,
paragraph before we start in.
okay. I'm
And
sorry.
that's okay. Because of the complementary balance of all couples, the challenge will be similar, but the defense will be opposite. So I just thought that is sort of the good news, bad news. Like, good news, it's fairly simple. We get two defensive strategies to deal with all of our challenges, and they're going to be complementary. So we're going to have similar wounding at a developmental stage with very different defenses.
Yes.
Yeah. So, um,
But is this saying, I had highlighted that same paragraph. Is this saying that our we're going to use the same character adaptations at different levels of development, but one of them are we developed. So first there, are we going to use the same adaptation to try and deal with issues at different developmental stages? Is that what it's saying? That's the first
I
question.
I don't think so actually. It
Okay,
all it's really saying is it's going to be opposite.
that part I
So
got.
yeah, so like Steve and I were talking this morning over breakfast about like, okay, so we definitely have wounding in that early attachment, connecting and exploring and identity. I was like, oh my God, but we switch back and forth. So
Mhm.
like in one situation, I'll be the rigid minimizer, and then he'll be the diffuse maximizer, and then we'll switch. And so I think the point is just to normalize, like, well, yeah, like you're some people will switch, some people won't, right? But I don't think we consistently show up as one or the other. Some people maybe more so than others,
Yeah, I
but
have a direct experience of what you're saying.
you do? Okay, good. Thanks, Michael, for joining me in the pit of yeah. So like there's so many times where I'll collapse and be compliant. And there's other times, I'm just hating that he's so freaking compliant. Yeah. But again, it makes me as difficult as our relationship can be and difficult as I can be, it helps me just love my couples with whatever sort of they're doing. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I can relate to doing that. Yeah.
I think that's why I wrote like these two pages. I have notes and stars everywhere, right? And this is what made me say I think we have to go back to basics. Because if you, the first page, the second paragraph talks about gauging the unfinished agenda. Like we have to go back to basics to understand why there's this dance, to maximize, the minimize. And that's why I feel like we're definitely being challenged on teaching them how to connect, but we have to understand what the unfinished business is, which is why it's so important in the beginning to get the history.
Mm,
Like, and sometimes I think often we're there before the couples are there because we understand, okay, so this wasn't healed and this is triggering this. But I think the goal is, I think the best part of being a clinician is letting them identify it, opposed to saying, well, you're doing this
yes.
because, and they
Yes.
threw in some good stems like, okay, this takes you back, this reminds you of. So I think this this chapter is challenging us as clinicians just to stay in the process. just
I love what you're saying, Litris. I think it's so critical what you're saying is that to not get ahead of them. We know it's historical, right? And really this theory is to keep our butt in the chair and our mouth shut right? Just to be like, okay, they will make sense. There will be something historical that eventually becomes clear to everybody, right? But um but to just know that they will make sense, right? And that we just stay with the process and go back to the basics of having them mirror and take turns and go slow and encourage them, um, that we don't have to figure it all out. It's oftentimes maybe 5 or 6 sessions in that it starts to become clear what this thing is. Um, it's not clear at the beginning why they needed to do whatever they're talking about that they did, or yeah. Yeah. So when you say go back to the basics, you really mean literally go back to the basics. Go back to mirroring, taking turns, going slow, doing the appreciations, doing all, like, I really loved the list of things to do for different couples. Um, it
Yes.
it makes sense. It makes sense that, like, maybe the more intellectual couples have we would do more holding exercises. And with these really early connecting challenge couples, how slow we have to go. We have to go so slow, which can be hard for me, I can be impatient sometimes and I have to, like, pop my popcorn and just be like, just chill out and just see what's going to go on here. You don't need to. But they feel like, oh my God, we need help right now, or we're going to, like, throw each other out the windows.
Can
Yeah.
I go a little sideways? So in the basics, so without knowing, your couple shows up first time. You don't know what their defense strategies are. I would, I'm not a clinician, so
I
I
know, and
would,
I love your questions, Michael. They're great.
so I would, because I don't know enough, have them sit close, put knees together or touch, look in each other's eyes, do an affirmation. I would do because
Yeah.
I don't know and I don't know what you know. So, but in the very first one, basically the one of the things is don't put the chairs too close, you know. So, but I don't know enough yet. They just showed up. So when you have a couple just showing up and you don't know enough, and how do you start?
What a great question. I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts about that, because that's a great question. It's a kind of question I would encourage somebody to use every session. How should I start this session given that I don't know this couple? Yeah. But
And
I
I
think
will
most of
tell
us get
you,
like a routine, right? Latressa, were you
mm,
going to share?
so I will tell you one of the things that is very, the way I was trained, the very first thing you do is you educate. You don't
Hmm.
go in doing therapy. You go in explain the Imago process,
Hmm.
and that is different. Um, and then you go from there. You have your intake. So your intake, you should have an idea of why they're coming in, right? And so you explain to them why we're going back to go forward, and then it starts to make sense. That's how my first session is, more education, and and then you should go from there to what are their goals. So that's your treatment plan. They're going to give you goals, and one of your first assignment should be what is their vision for their marriage. So that's
Mm,
like that could be your first 3 sessions from starting from that groundwork. That's how I was trained to start.
great.
Hmm.
So, Latressa, you educate them in the intake. You try to understand what they want. You try to help them define some goals and then create a vision.
Yes. We
Beautiful.
talk about minimizer, maximizer with puppets. So when these things show up, we can come back and remind them who's the minimizer, maximizer. We have the turtles. Um, and then we talk about what their goals and their visions are, and they're supposed to, within the next couple sessions, write goals.
Hmm.
And then they
Great.
come back and we're constantly working toward those goals. And so in that process, a lot will show up, and then you'll know which direction to come in, and then you explain to them what a sentence stem is. So if something comes up and I say, well, this reminds me of, they're understanding why I'm prepping them to go in that direction. and they're understanding. We're not arguing. We're trying to find out what's behind that. So it's, yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I start.
So
Thank you.
you don't do the mirroring or anything, Latressa, like during
Not
those
the first
educational
session, because
during
you're
those educational.
educating.
Yeah.
They need to understand what mirroring is. And it's not just repeating the words. So see, this goes with the education. It's not you just saying what I say. You learning how to hear, to understand, not to respond. This all goes with education. So we're prepping them for the following session. So when I stop and say, so this reminds me of, this takes me back, they don't think I'm just interrupting. And then you're explaining the importance of the grounding. So, if you're getting to go back and forth, not just stop and say, can we just breathe? So they need to understand why we're doing all these things. So when it starts to come up, it's not as difficult to get in the process with the couple. So they're doing the work and we're following. That's the goal.
Beautiful. How
Thank
else do
you.
other people start? Because I think everybody has a different approach. Or maybe you
Teresa,
start
I
the
so
same.
appreciate you saying that because I kind of probably forgotten to do a lot of those basics. I mean, I'm thank you for saying all that because that's like so important. I probably jump right in a little bit more than I should. Um, for sure. I mean, I think I read the room pretty quickly. Like you can tell what, you can see some stuff pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I at least let them know what Imago is and how it might be different than other couples therapy if they've been in it
Wait,
before.
we lost you, Amy.
Oh, you did? Can you hear me now?
I
Okay,
I
let
could
me.
hear you,
Can't
I
Oh,
hear.
think
You're
okay.
not
Michael,
muted, but we can't hear you.
but I'll
yeah,
mirror you,
Michael,
Amy.
Oh,
I'll
Okay.
wait,
mirror
I
you.
lost you. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, I
That,
hear her. Yeah, we can hear.
yeah, but I'll
Sorry.
mirror you.
It was my computer. Sorry.
That's okay, Michael, so you can hear. So, Amy, you're saying you really appreciate Latressa sharing that because you're thinking, oh, maybe I could do some more of that. You kind of jump in, you read the room, you kind of get a sense of like how, I mean, you can tell a lot, but like where they sit and how they're interacting. Like, is this cold? Is this hot? What's going on? And then you were saying that, what's the last part?
Explain what Imago is and what
You
I have to
explain.
offer, kind of in a basic way, but not by no means as detailed
Right.
as what
So
you're
if they've done
describing.
other kinds of couples therapy, you are helping them understand how what this is going to be like.
It's going to be different, that they're going to be facing each other. There's going to be a dialogue and how this is going to be different and start to explain what that is. And then, but through them doing it,
Yeah.
we're going to do an appreciation dialogue to begin and that's the jumping in. So no, I think the education piece is um, brilliant. And yeah, the importance
Mm-hmm.
of them understanding it ahead of time so they know when it's starting to happen. Oh, we were taught what it is, and now it makes sense that she's bringing it in right now. Um, really cool.
Yeah.
I find
Oh,
I find
Bonnie.
it's,
Yeah, come in.
yeah, yeah. I've assisted Harville and Helen over the years, and one of the things I took away is uh, to just like warmly look at them and just say, um, "You are brave. You are courageous. You are willing to take the risk of being in public." That would be me. To bring to the table the things that are not working for you, so that your relationship can possibly work through those uh, and have things get better. Do I have you right? So I kind of want to mirror them right away, and then I'll mirror whatever they say. Um, it bounces back and forth, but I actually get them into mirroring pretty quickly, and it's on low grade stuff and things like that. But ultimately, what I want to watch is that even in the first session, if it can happen, I see and I believe they see, but I don't ask them, that they're connected.
Yeah.
That they walk away and they've got that experience. Oh my gosh, whatever happened there, uh, you seem less dangerous to me, or whatever it is.
Yeah. So you try to give them a different experience.
Yeah.
And you pray and you appreciate them. Just start with an appreciation that they showed
Yeah, I
up.
just realize it. Yeah, I don't, the teaching, what I do tell them is this is a combination work. There's a lot of psychoed and there's also, a lot of new ways of being.
Wait,
Sorry, sorry,
New
sorry, sorry.
ways of being. I heard that part.
Yeah, and realizing that what we all almost always say somewhere in the sessions with people, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to get what you got. And
That goes on a t-shirt, don't you think?
yeah, so the invitation is, uh, to be open as much as you can to a new way of looking at
Mm.
life with somebody other than you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to mirror that, Bonnie, because it's so great. So if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you got. And then what was the second thing you said? Because I really loved it about um, doing the work together, kind of. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, I realize at 79, I can never tell you what I just said.
Fair, fair. Well, it's recorded. Maybe I'll have to go back because I liked it.
I heard you say be open to a new way of life.
That's what it was. Yeah, be open to a new way of being together.
Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
thank you, Michael.
That I think that'll be the back of the t-shirt. And the front of the t-shirt is like if you keep doing it, you're gonna get what you got, but be open to a new way of being. I love it.
And by the way, the front of the shirt is crazy.
I
What
love
was the
it.
first thing you said that you mirrored from Harvard and Helen with the "You Are Brave" part? I like that.
Yeah.
Um, Acknowledge.
Breaking up, we can't hear you.
Yeah. I'll try to mirror what Bonnie said that you are brave and you're willing to show up here in public to work on what you want to work on and yeah, like a lot of appreciations for how courageous they are and their willingness. Did I miss anything, Bonnie? Or other people that you heard?
I heard you are brave, you are courageous, and you're willing to do this in public in front of me and to take the risk to bring to the table the things that aren't working.
Mm,
I wrote it. That's what I wrote down.
it's brilliant. This is a fun conversation about how we start sessions and the kinds of things we highlight. Leslie, did you want to jump in?
Yeah. Yeah, well, because I work with a lot of insurance and do like these hour sessions with a lot of people, um, I've developed like an intake form that I send them that they fill out that kind of mirrors the questions that I need to fill in for insurance.
Yeah.
And and then I can when I first see them, I'm just really my main goal in that first session is to just create a lot of safety in the space between us and model that and be slow
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, give a lot of affirmations. It's a lot of, I mean, Harville's secret sauce, I think, is his warmth.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a sincere warmth that he brings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard not to have that touch you if it's directed at you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
so I
Yeah.
try to do a lot of that, however you do it. And I ask the couple to separately tell me the story of how they fell in love.
Mm-hmm.
And they often have really interesting reactions to each other during hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I slowly mirror what they told me. So they hear it twice and they get that feeling of being fully heard, fully listened to, like I really crossed the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask them if they'd be comfortable. I do a lot of permission asking. I always ask permission to do the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I'm concerned about the safety.
Right. So the primary focus is on safety, and you
Mhm.
create that safety by asking permission, not going too fast, making sure you have that consent, mirroring them, and focusing on this positive memory network of when they first fell in love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I get a lot of good information when I hear that, and I see the reaction from the partner hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can kind of tell how far down the path of close to separation are they.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have an intake form to cover what you need so that really you can give them an experience in that first session.
Yeah. And then if we have time after all of that, and I love it when we do, then I definitely have them do an appreciation mirroring. Just
Mm-hmm.
just the mirror. No, not
Mm-hmm.
not the parts, just the mirror.
That's
Just
right. Just an appreciation using mirroring only, which typically that's an appreciation is always just mirroring only.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I have a longer one. And it's interesting because I'm considering actually changing the process a little bit and have them do a much longer dialogue, which includes a lot of the that Gene created that he uses in his first session with couples. And uh, I really like it. I mean, it's kind of like something I've never heard of before, to do such a long dialogue with people right from the first session, but it only requires them to mirror and you lead them through it, and it fills in all the blanks, like it, not all, but a lot of the early blanks that you would want to, and they're having this experience, and then almost the entire session they're in dialogue. It's a bold idea, but I'm like, if Gene does it, he's been doing this for a long time.
Exactly.
I
I
think
think
I
I have, yeah, I have his initial session. Um, Email me and I will drop you. There's a booklet of different faculties' initial sessions
Lovely.
that
oh,
Ian from England, from the UK, he created this as part of his project when he joined the faculty in 19. So some of you might not have it.
oh, I,
But it's a great resource. So I will email me and I'll send that to you. Um,
and then if I can just, I have some thoughts about this chapter 8 that and I'm curious about some what people think about some of this stuff. But so earlier, Michelle, I heard you talking about how we influence the session or not, which I think we always are, whether we know it or not, and as they are. And, I was thinking to myself, in my relationship and pretty much all my relationships, I'm the more diffuse person, you know. And my husband's like very deliberate and very, intentional. And he's like that naturally, long before Imago. And so I think I tend to also like to fly by the seat of my pants in a session. And I think that that's one of the things I like about having done the workshop training, because you really have to make a big plan,
yeah, yeah,
which felt really overwhelming to me.
yeah.
And I had to struggle through that. And then it really started to help my sessions too. It helped me like balance those two pieces, like you two were talking about, Linda and Michelle. So that's one thing. So I wonder how that, and I think about this in sessions sometimes, like if I have a real, um, a person who really likes a lot of order and really likes, the timing to be exactly right, and all these things that are really hard for me to do. Um, I wonder how that impacts the session
Mm-hmm.
for the couple as a whole, and what might be possible if I were more balanced with them in that way, depending on how they're presenting or how extreme their differences are, and
Yes.
then
I like
right.
what you're saying, Leslie. I think it's helpful if we have a couple different ideas about how to do an initial session so that if they if they do like whatever their needs are, right? That we probably tend to deliver the first session in the way we like to have a session or to our strengths. And I like playing around with, experimenting with some of these ideas. Um, yeah, like I tend to work with a lot of artists and a lot of anxiety, and they tend to have a lot of performance anxiety. So if I teach too much, they start to get anxious about how they're going to do. So I tend to just jump in and guide them through and celebrate how well they did and kind of worry about filling in some of those gaps as we go. But there's probably couples that don't respond well to that. So I like that we're talking about all these different ways and we can think about it. Anything you want to add, Linda, to anything this conversation?
Yeah, I think what I try to do is right off the bat, I try to give the couple an experience
Mm-hmm.
because we can, of course, we explain how Imago is a little different, but then I try to give them an experience right off the bat of a little of the mirroring, and then try to ask them, how does that differ from how they normally talk? Because I'm trying to get their buy-in to this different approach. So if they start to say, wow, yeah, we're able to talk and we're not this, and they can start talking about and focus on what they like, maybe I can get enough buy-in for them to continue and then just kind of sprinkle the education throughout as I, guide them through the process.
Yeah. I love that we can just start the way we feel comfortable and play to our strengths. And yet it's such a cool conversation and a great question, Michael, because I mean, one thing I would say about what your question was, which is like, if you're not supposed to place the chairs too close together, right? Then what? And I would say that that's just a general tip, right? But generally, when a couple comes into my office, they sit however they want to sit. I have them
Mhm.
facing each other, but I do ask them, are the chairs too close? Are they too far away? Like, let's get this so you both feel comfortable. Versus I wouldn't tell them how to sit. Um,
When you start to do an appreciation or a very structured mirroring, you don't literally turn to each other, look in each other's eyes. You don't give them any instructions like that.
well, I mean, right now I'm working online a lot, so they're typically in their
Uh,
space, and we have to spend some time getting them comfortable sitting. Um, and they're on their furniture. So,
yeah,
but in
yeah.
my office, when a couple comes in and my chairs are set up, yeah, I spend some time for them figuring out what feels comfortable in terms of how far away or how close they are. But I like this little phrase of like sitting heart to heart, eye to eye, knee to knee. I like that frame and then them figuring out what feels comfortable for them. Um, so if I have a 90-minute session for first couples, which a lot of times I do, I like to play the magic wand game, which is in the booklet. I think it's Wendy Patterson's. Like it kind of gives you an overall assessment of like Michael, what do you think your partner would say? What do you think they would change about you if they had a magic wand? And so then I get a sense of like, what are you guys arguing about? And what do you actually listen to what the other person's saying about what they want? And then I do like an appreciation dialogue just to give them that experience, like Linda's saying of feeling connected. And then yeah, we got to get some buy-in because yeah, if we don't have buy-in, and then you've got people, Bonnie, like one person was like, Imago's bullshit. I'm like, so one thing I do, this is just me, I never tell them I'm doing Imago. You're here for couples therapy and we're doing couples therapy and you don't need to know what it's called. So if they call and ask for Imago, great. But if they don't, otherwise I don't say what they're doing. And that way, if they don't like something, they think something's bullshit, they can tell me what part they don't like. And I can validate and we can think about a way to adapt it because they might be neurospicy, they might be traumatized by a mother who said, "Did I get it?" Like, there's all these things that I do want them to tell me. And if I call it a mago, they'll just say they hate the whole thing, and then I can't get anywhere. So that's just what I do. I'm like, you don't need to know what we're doing uh, until yeah, you do until you're going to the workshop or we're on our sixth session and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, this is a Mago. But that's just, everybody has a different style and thinking about this. Um,
I had two trainers. When I did my training, Marcia and Carol do the trainings
oh, they're
together.
both great.
And a part of the training is each of us had to present the first session, and that's the requirement of the education piece. And Carol and Marcia, we were talking about Marcia does more of the education piece, and she tells Helen and Harville's story how they were going to get a divorce. And then Carol was like, well, I don't do all that. I don't think they need to know all of that. And so again, no matter how much experience you have, I think you figure out what works for you and your clients. Because I think if I came in and about to be in a divorce, it would help me to know that the people who started this process, this saved their marriage. So
Yes,
this is why I love hearing everyone's input on how they deliver it and you take what works for you. Because I'm a firm believer that something
100%.
about us attracts certain people, with the exception of, referrals, but
Mm-hmm.
something about our styles attract certain type of people. I think for me, my highly educated people who are too maximizers definitely need the education piece.
Mhm.
And I noticed in the book on page 180, it talks about how the couples respond to the analogies of the turtle and the hailstone. Like
Yeah,
we're showing how you're this maximizer and how the turtle shuts down. Sometimes having that visual helps the couples to see that this is what this looks like in your home. So I again, some people just get in, but it depends on your couple. It depends on where they are. But I think having a system in place and pulling from these different styles and then creating your own, I think is just really the key. But just kind of good to hear because even with those two, they were. But after we talked it out as a group, Carol was like, okay, I didn't think about that, but yeah, I think they would appreciate that. So just brainstorming together kind of gives you what your niche is.
I agree. I love that. I love that. And I think it makes sense that we're talking about initial sessions in this chapter because we're thinking about uh, just like we bring our unmet need to our relationship, we bring our unmet need to, to therapy, right? And so, and then the therapists themselves, we have unmet needs that impact how we want to work. And so this is really such a rich conversation. I hope people listen to this recording because it's so rich in this. And yeah, the turtle and the octopus is interesting how that's going to appeal, to certain couples. But I do think it's so helpful, or whatever metaphor you use, it's so helpful to every couple to learn about the gifts that the other person has, even in their defensive style. Like, the gift of the turtle is this value for harmony
Mhm.
and, autonomy and their wisdom to be honored. And like the gift of the octopus is wanting to improve and grow and um, understand more. Like, so there's the more they can see, like, yeah, I don't like your defensive style, but there's also gifts that are helpful for me to think about what I can embrace. It's very normalizing. And so whether you do that first session or sixth session or you send them to a workshop, like it's so valuable. Um, and it'll all be great. That's what I love is when we're training people is like however you want to do it, it will work because that's how you like to do it. If you're trying to do it like somebody else, it's might be harder. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I like that we're talking about the style of how we approach the work, even if we're using the same framework, because the more clearer we are on that. I mean, I have so many people that come to me after seeing a lot of different couples counselors, and this conversation is making me think about a question I asked about, have you seen a couples counselor before? And I think that's when I do talk about how I'm going to maybe do things differently. And you do learn what does work for people and what does not work for some people. And I've heard like quite a few times, like there's certain folks that don't like eye gazing, like it's
Yeah.
repulsive to them initially, right? They're like, I can't cope. And you're like, okay, that's good information for me to know that that is not available for that couple for whatever reason at that point in time. So, some couples counselor got them there too quickly, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's cool for us to get clear about what we do have to offer so that people can elect in or out. So like, if we're going to start with eye gazing, then they could say we're out. And we're
Yeah.
going to find somebody that's going to, maybe do more education initially or do something else where they can access it. So anyway, this is a very helpful conversation to think about how to articulate who we are so that couples can, match appropriately with us.
Yeah. And how can we attune to what they need, as
Yes.
quickly as we can.
And to what
Um,
degree do we do that is totally another conversation I'd love to talk about. But yeah.
yeah. Well, so I had a question. This was under how to attune to the identity challenged couple. Um, and at the very end, it says, have them use appreciations to repair negative exchanges. That was at the end of the list on page 182.
Mhm.
And I would love to hear if anybody, what your thoughts are about that. I'm like, I'm not really clear how to use appreciations to repair negative exchanges. Like, I just know for me personally, because I'm like the worst person you would ever have as a client, I would use that appreciation. It would wind up as like sarcasm, like, I really appreciate that I would use it to dig, I think. So I was like, how do you do that? Uh, well, because that was my thought, my question with that one.
The first
Any
thing, the,
thoughts?
the first thing came to mind for me when you said that is flooding. I've had couples to come and the whole session, they talk about what they appreciate in mirror, and it's an amazing thing to watch. I have a couple in mind, and she just said, well, I appreciate how you pick the kids up and drop them off. And he was like, really? Like it's the is I think couples often miss. And I think one couple I had doing the flooding, he was in I appreciate what kind of father you are, and
Yeah,
I appreciate just how you show up. And he was like, oh, what? I mean, it's amazing
it
because we're
is.
so at odds all the time, but just the flood and then mirror it back. And it's such a soft thing. I've seen the men just, maybe it's women, we don't do it enough, but they love it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes. They
Thank you for
really get
sharing
into it.
that. Yeah, I think I read it differently. So I think now that you said that, Latressa, I can say, oh, I think what they're saying there versus problem solving, to do the repair through the positive versus trying to repair by solving a negative exchange. Yeah. So yes, thank you for helping me because yeah, that you can see where my unconscious spot is there. As an octopus, I want to solve the problem. I want to fix the negative exchange. And even though I know that I can shift the energy by being positive and that's going to get me more what I want, my impulse is still the other way. So, am I alone? Can anyone validate me? Or at least pray for Stephen? I don't know.
Yeah, you're alone, Michelle, and we're
Okay,
praying for.
thank you.
No, 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 no. I'm with you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Michelle, when you look at 82, it's a few bullet points in there, and I put the arrows next because I'm always looking for stems. Because when you're in it, you're trying to stay with the couple, but I'm always thinking about stems, and I like so because couples always say, "Well, I know I've been married to you for 20 years," so it's telling you how to coach them through this unhealthy dialogue they have, but it's saying so, you're checking to see if there's more feelings, and it says so. The point I really want you to understand is, again, so that softens, right?
Yes.
So I think again, I keep going back to, we can't forget about the basics. Like those stems, I think are really, it breaks down that hailstorm turtle mindset. And then I remember, because in intake, I talked about how my father was verbally abusive and how he did things. And you and I are talking and you're attacking me. And I say, so when this happens, this makes me feel. Now, the other partner softens because he doesn't want to give you that same abuse that your father was giving. So again, it goes back to the beginning,
Hmm.
understanding how we got here and how the net unfinished business keeps showing up in the marriage, and it's not the person you're fighting. So that's why I said I think this chapter is challenging us to go back to what we first long and learned and not get so caught up in their stuff like we
Hmm.
can.
Yes, I also drew arrows and wrote love this to those stems because those are really great stems. And I like that they're linked to like the identity stage, right? Where we're more competitive with each other with that kind of wounding. And so giving them some tools to help like get to the point if they're maximizers and that poor little partner's like, I don't know what to mirror because you just said a lot, or helping the person own that they can have an opinion and be interested in the other person. Like these are really powerful stems. Yeah. And I felt that way about a couple lists actually. Um, maybe it's the next one. Well, I'm like, I feel like they did. No, I think that's the main one where there were stems listed, actual specific stems.
There's one on 184. The last few, it says, and what hurts the most about that is,
Ah,
Yeah, under
yes,
the
thank you.
competence challenge couple.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know if this happens with you guys, but when you get to the validation, it's very common, like clockwork. Well, how do I validate that? Because I don't agree.
Yes, but that actually is the diagnostic point that this is an identity wounded couple because only one of us can be right. So they're very, I mean, I say they, but we, because Steve and I are very much in this, like we are very um get stuck in like who's right or the
Right,
competitive
right.
thing, you know. So I think it makes sense that that type of couple has trouble validating. And there's other couples that will just have no problem validating, right? That's such a easier type of couple, but most couples will struggle with empathy or validation and may just have them stick to mirroring for quite a long time. You know, we'll dip our toe in the water. And I like that, you know, they're giving sentence stems there of like, that makes sense, or you make sense. We don't have to do the why yet because it can be a lot for a couple where it's like, I remember one couple, they were like, it's going great until I have to validate them because then I'm basically like everything I think is erased, right? When I validate them. I'm like, okay, right there we see that two people cannot exist yet in this world. They're very locked into the symbiotic stage.
This again is why I like the education piece of explaining what validation is and explaining what mirroring is. Because they think is, oh, let me just repeat some words, right? But when you explain to them where we're trying to go, it makes it easier when you get in these spots. Because I would gently jump in and say, is it okay if I mirror what you heard in validation? And I say, well, didn't you say that you did snap back? I did. Okay, so you make sense because I did snap at you and I could have handled it wrong. So it's those small things that just don't want to own it. And so when you're
Right,
gently, and I say, so can you proceed and go back and validate? But I find that's where I do my most work. You make sense because there's like, well, no, I don't agree with that.
right.
You're putting your perspective to the side. So you have to keep going back to
Yes.
reminding them of we're doing something different.
So Latrice, I want to make sure I got you. So in what you're saying is you kind of double for them in the validation so they can start to understand what it might feel sound like. Like, no, I did snap
Yes,
back.
yes.
And so you're helping them learn what that might sound like. I think that's so important when
It
they're
makes sense in
ready,
what you
right? If
said
they're ready
because
for it. Yeah.
even if they're not, they need to understand what it means. Like they're I think we're so used to arguing and who's right and who's wrong. I did snap at you and I could have just I can see how that makes sense because you said something I did respond incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I just and they'll and so they'll say, okay, I can see that. It's just it's the approach and being gentle in it. Because I think we get caught in our head of just writing this wrong, right? And so
Yeah.
once I understand what validation really means, it's me owning my stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It beautifully said. That's such a key point of validation is to take some self-responsibility.
And yes, right.
And
Did I
based
get
on
you?
where they
Yes.
have their wounding, they may or may not be ready to take any self-responsibility, right? But
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to model for them. Yeah, Bonnie.
Yeah, that I see that in the couples that are either growing like crazy or come in, obviously with their difficulties, but can do the validation. And I don't know if they still bring it up, but the three levels of validation,
Yeah, go
you
through
make
them.
sense. Well, so if I tell you um, that I'm really tired, had no idea my bike ride would be so exhausting. I'm not going to make dinner tonight. Would it work for you to go out or blah, blah, blah? The validation there is trying to find the person's logic and be able to say, um, I can see why, given that you're a lot tireder than you thought you'd be, and don't see you could do dinner very well or make it willingly or something that you may want to go. That's the first one. The second one is um, it makes sense. I know you to be somebody who just drives hard when you're exercising, and so I can see how, given that you've been gone for 3 hours doing your bike riding, that would make sense. And the third one is, um, I don't know, maybe you make sense because uh, you you have been a person who uh, values. The third one is kind of like values or the morals of the person, their essence. Um, because I know you to be somebody who wants to be fair and wants to, be willing to keep your word. And it makes sense that you'd want to just say, I wanted to, but I can't, because I know you to be a person who keeps your word. Or anyway, I might have mushed those, but that triad thing, I throw that in every once in a while when I can see that the validator is really over there in the other person's world. Uh, and and then the deeper they get, the person says, "Oh my God, you do see me." That goes a long way, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a tough row to hoe for many folks who come in and don't even want to mirror their ass because that's giving them attention they don't want to mirror, give to them.
Exactly. Thank you for going through those, Bonnie, because I think it's really important to know that there's lots of ways that people can begin to
Mm,
start to validate, and
mhm.
that it's okay to um like basically let them off the hook from doing other kinds of validations until they're really ready. Like
Right.
I mean, Stephen would say this, like, he just now, after like 20 years of doing Imago, can start to really do validations. It's just
Beautiful.
something
Yeah.
he's had to work on for a long time because there's such shame in doing anything wrong, any mistake, right? So he may know what it's supposed to sound like, but the feelings are very difficult to say, yeah, I did that. But he's really worked hard on that over a period of time.
Wow.
So yeah, I think validation is one of those really complex steps that's in
Mm,
our dialogue that's like part of the diagnostic piece of like where are
mm,
they wounded? Because that, yeah, wounding, any kind of shame makes it harder. Any kind of like not differentiated, very young kind of adaptation, I can't even step into your world, really. I mean, it's very
Well, the
hard.
symbiosis is still so strong.
Yeah. Yeah. And so those couples, like I'll give you an example because I came up like in analysis, like I not fully strict analysis, but the modern analytic. And there would be articles I would read about treatment. And some of these people like laid on a couch for years, 3 times a week, and all this person did was mirror them. And eventually the narcissism broke, like really extremely difficult character structure shifted with enough mirroring, right? And with enough like attunement and respect to whatever they wanted to talk about. And so it just made me appreciate, like, yeah, this couple might be mirroring each other and just working on mirroring for 5 years, 10 years, and that's just where they need to be. Yeah. And to sort of like, I call it therapeutic zeal. I think that's the term. Like to just metabolize our therapeutic zeal. Like we're not going to be making any huge miraculous difference that's worth recording. In this session, we're just gonna be with them as they really try to hear and see each other.
I have
Um,
a question about that kind of feeling. I mean, for us to manage that is fine, but what about them managing, like kind of managing the kind of lack of like great success in the and progress in the relationship?
yeah,
I'm just
I think
curious about that because
yeah, I think that's important because there will be those couples where they want it to be different
and
and
they
they
keep
want it
showing
to
up.
change quickly. They want
Yeah.
this to change quickly. And I mean, I think the best we can do is to validate right? Yes, of course. You want the behavior to change. It makes sense. And you're doing amazing work. This is really hard work.
Yeah.
But it does it what I generally do, this is just me, okay? I generally hear that as I'm working too much with the identified patient. You know, the person who the dragger needs to do some work and start to understand their part in the dynamic. And it can be very seductive to work with the person doing really seductive things, to work with the person who is lying or cheated or has a drug problem or whatever. But the overfunctioner who wants to get somewhere fast needs some attention and needs to get vulnerable. So that's sometimes how I hear that. It's like, oh, I'm not paying enough attention to you. Because of course they
Well,
want the other person to change quicker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, but
Hard. So
they
hard.
that means they don't understand the work they're having to do. Correct.
I don't love, but it's very clear to just know this understanding, this learning for ourselves of life and the wonder of being able to work with these couples. It really showed up this morning because this partner who was the minimizer, the turtle, blah blah, said, yes, I had a very alcoholic father. He was mean, and I would spend a lot of time in my room. I never could get a word in edgewise. And that's exactly what's coming in my relationship. And I consider it to be growth to get the hell out of Dodge, so to speak.
Yeah.
And missing the part,
Yeah.
the part they play. And
Yes.
so, that's a pretty locked in viewpoint. And as long as they think they're doing good stuff for themselves,
Yeah.
it's real hard not to say, you'll meet the other person or yourself again in
Well,
another
this will
Exactly.
happen
relationship.
again.
Yeah, I should tell that just to you guys.
No, but I think this is the challenge is like holding that tension between they might be right and there might be more that they can learn,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
how do we not like, take up an agenda of saving every couple? Because there
Mhm.
are some times where they are right. Actually, it's time for them to go, and that could be true. And before you go, let's see what we can learn about this. And can we explore some, like he talks about the ambivalence of this type of couple. I think it was the identity stage couple that they will be very ambivalent about the relationship. So they'll be like, break up, get back together, break up, get
Mm-hmm.
back together. So helping that couple explore what I would lose if I did that, what I wish I could have if I, like what I would
Mm,
need to not do, like helping them
mm,
at least unpack the all of the feelings in a goodbye
mm.
and seeing where it lands. But yeah, I mean, anyway, I so get what you're saying, Bonnie, because I mean, I
And the
live it.
mirroring exercise, the mirroring exercise of what is it like living with you, and that person gets to hear how
Yeah,
they're being experienced by their partners. So we have so many tools in the box
yeah,
that we have to be creative and pull those tools out. Because sometimes they'll look like, ooh,
yeah,
they need to see themselves as you sit there as a clinician and mirror
yeah.
everything that they're saying, in a calm, gentle place with them not arguing and jumping out of the imago. And I know for me, Amy, I'll ask my clients, how long have you been going through this? And they may say 15 years. I says, well, you
Yeah.
can't expect to come to therapy in 2 months and undo 15 years. I
Right.
give them that reminder because they're expecting us to be magicians and we're not. But
Yes.
I'm willing to stay in and do the work with you if you're willing to. And another thing came to mind as I heard you guys talking. Everyone is not meant to do my goal. A lot of them need individual counseling. So many, and this is where I think us as the professional have to make that decision of, is this modality the best for this couple? And because I don't work harder than the client. That's I'm the bumper car. It's not gonna drive me crazy.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, but
True
I
that.
also, yeah, I do want to just really also validate like that when a person is in that rigid, stuck spot and so much despair, and they've rationalized a story
Right.
that this is how I heal,
Mhm.
not in relationship with this person, but
Right.
outside of the relationship, how like how difficult that moment is for us as a therapist.
Phew.
Like no matter how many tools we have, there's something about that position that leaves us feeling quite de-skilled. Like there's really no place to go because what are you going to do? Invalidate where they are at that moment, talk them into something like, um, so I just want to honor like, yeah, just how hard those moments are, both for me personally when I get in them and when I have somebody in my office in one. Um, One thing that has helped me over the years, Bonnie, and I'm guessing you have the same experience because you've been doing this for many years. It's like that same couple will want to break up on Thursday and be back together by Friday, and they get into that spot and they bounce out of it eventually a lot of times because they don't want to lose. It's a way of dealing with how the pain of not getting my needs met.
I
It's
know
kind
those
of a
couples.
threat.
This isn't an example, but I do know those
Yeah.
couples. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, they
this is,
come in
you
every
think
time the
this
same.
person's really serious. They're done.
And they think they're saving their own ass.
Yeah.
It's like I pursued my dad to try to get his love, and I got hammered,
Yeah.
uh, and that's what I've been doing here.
Yeah.
But I've shut down anytime, and you're never going to get any information from me because you were so bad and wrong.
Yeah.
And so they don't get the punishing part, or how a turtle coming out of their shell a little bit does amazing things for both parties. And
Oh, yeah.
that's been tough. Yeah.
It's so tough. Yeah, but that reminds me of actually this sentence that I loved. Um,
Really.
it's on page 181. Um, it just reminded me of this that they're talking about like a rigid minimizer who is in the identity challenge place. And it says their determination to ward off any semblance of the domination they endured as children often manifests ironically in their tendency to maintain dominance over their partner. That we work so hard to not have the same experience that we did as children, and then we end up ironically becoming the bully, the perpetrator, the whatever that is. And again, that's kind of like what you're saying, Latressa. It's very helpful sometimes to educate the couple around something so that when we hit it, we can maybe have a chance of making a move in that moment. But I also know that like sometimes they're right. I hate to say it, but I don't think every couple um, has the energy to work through everything, and they might need to be in their third relationship 20
Right.
years from now to see what they couldn't see right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's so heartbreaking, I think, for
Yeah,
me.
I have seen couples come, and one, I'm coming because you asked me to come, but I don't want to be here. So, the motives are not always the best motive. And all we can do is do our best and let them make their decisions. So sometimes they come like,
Yeah.
Oh,
if you
I
don't
just
get
think
better,
it's
I'm leaving.
Well, so we're at our time. I just want to thank everyone for coming. I will set next month's dates and put it out on Facebook or email me if you don't see it. And thank you so much. What a
thank
rich
you,
day. That
Thank
Michelle.
you,
was
So
just
Michelle.
very
appreciate it.
Thank you,
lovely.
Michelle. Thanks, guys.